I want to help carry that vision forward. I'm Kate Marks. I'm running for District 3, and I appreciate your vote.
Thank you. And now Ralph Koretz, closing remarks.
Well, our slogan is, it's our turn now. And by that I mean the emphasis of the city needs to be back to the residents and neighborhoods. Economic development is wonderful. We've been very successful with that. We can always use more. But economic development ought to come from the developers, the businesses. I didn't get any assistance from TERS when I came to the island. I built my business and I rebuilt my business after Hurricane Ike, and now I'm really pleased with the progress we've made. We employ about 40 people around the country, about 15 here on the island. I've been participating for 10 years with different organizations. I've been president of GAIN. I learned an awful lot about working with the neighborhoods, but the challenges were always difficult when we dealt with city council. We need to change the orientation of city council to really be more concerned about us, the people that live here, and the businesses that are here. So the money's there. We just need to shift it back from some guy from Houston who's got a great idea to build out some property somewhere on the West End or wherever. If he's a good developer, I used to be a developer, you can do it yourself. You don't need support from the city. But we, the people, need to get our tax money spent back on us and improve our areas, and then you will have economic development, as several people have already said. People will want to live here, and they'll enjoy living here. Again, this can be a showplace of residential, business, tourism, but that's got to be our priority, and not subsidizing guys that happen to, take us to dinner or whatever. So I hope y'all continue to support folks that are truly and have the track record of supporting you and helping you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph Koretz, Kate Marks, and Ralph Koretz, candidates for District 3. All right, everybody scoot over to Edna's room for the cash bar and some snacks, and we'll resume at 8:20 with the mayors and the council candidates for Districts 4, 5, and 6. Thank you.
Well, good evening, folks. All right, I'm talking to the microphone this time. All right, is there any candidates that are not up, please come up. Thank you for attending the second half here of our GAIN Candidates Forum. This is Districts 4, 5, and 6, and our mayoral candidates who are here again. If anyone would like to write a question, I have cards. Just raise your hand. I'll bring them around. Without further ado, I'll be right over there. George Lee, our Master of Ceremonies.
All right, as they say in the mud wrestling biz, this is round 2. Now, we're going to repeat what we did in the beginning. We have the mayoral candidates up here again. Well, we have 3 of them anyway. And we are going to start with their opening statements, beginning with Elizabeth Beaton.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for coming, especially so late at night after a long day. I've been working for a long time to make Galveston responsive to the people who pay the bills, to make City Hall accountable to the residents and local businesses who should be #1 on the list, but all too often are at the back of the line. And the key to that is first of all money, following the money, trying to keep overhead at City Hall low so that there's enough revenue left to reinvest in our neighborhoods, because that's the city's strongest economic engine. We've got to reinvest in our neighborhoods for at least 10 years. That needs to be our highest priority, because the people who live here spend money here 365 days a year. And we've got to quit chasing one new idea after another, one new tourist zone after another. Instead, our focus needs to be on our people. And that's why transparency in government has always been so important to me. I'm trying to provide the information so that the residents of Galveston can hold their leaders accountable. And we have a chance to do that in this election. And I'm hoping that we'll make the change that will result in a reprioritization at City Hall.
Thank you, Elizabeth Beaton. Now, Jim Yarborough, candidate for mayor.
I've got 2 questions. How many of you are here for the first session? How many of you are undecided about who you're going to vote for? That's why I want to talk to you. I'm laser, I'm focused. You know, Ms. Beaton mentioned in her closing statements some comment about the 3 former mayors supporting my candidacy. And I'm proud to say all 3 of them are. And that kind of sums up the candidacy in a nutshell. Those 3 mayors come from 3 different political perspectives: Republican, Democrat, pro-housing, anti-housing. They've worked the spectrum. That's what this campaign's all about. We got to bring people who are naturally on opposite sides of an issue, bring them behind a common cause. That's what will make Galveston better, not only in the short term, but it'll lay the foundation for our long-term improvements. You know, I have a track record of bringing people together. You know, I worked on the Commissioners Court with Republicans and Democrats. And we didn't all get along, but it was civil, and we respected each other, and we took care of the county's business in a professional manner. We can do that here at City Hall. I need your help to do that. I don't have all the answers. I'll be asking your advice on issues as we confront them over the next couple of years. I appreciate your vote for Jim Yarborough for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Yarborough. And now, Don Maffrey.
You know, I've been asked many times why I'm running for mayor. And the answer is because of the situation down at City Hall, where there's a lack of many things, to include the city council working together. There's a lack of leadership. There's a lack of getting things done. I would rather be doing something else, to tell you the truth. But I am very concerned about what is going on at City Hall. And I am presenting myself as a candidate for mayor because I have the leadership necessary to bring consensus on City Council, to establish goals and objectives, and to see that those goals and objectives are carried out. This has not happened in the last 2 years. We've had every council person going in different directions, and because of the lack of leadership at City Hall, they need to be brought together in a consensus to establish those goals and objectives and get them accomplished. I can do that. I was going to go through some of the things that happened when I was on City Council, that we achieved so many things. We had a $2 million debt. We ended up with a $2 million surplus. Charter change. We had a city auditor that made sure now that those things don't happen. We had a annual budget set aside so that we have a reserve at the city rather than the deficit. I'm proud of the things I've done, and I want to continue to have that opportunity to do more.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth Beaton, would you by any chance have a question for either of your opponents?
I don't right now. I'm sorry, but I might later.
All right. Well, we'll see if we can squeeze that one in. How about you, Jim Yarborough? Nothing from you. Well, surprise, surprise, I have one from Don Maffrey for you again.
Sounds good.
Hold your breath. Mr. Yarborough, while serving on American National Insurance Company Board as mayor, would you abstain from any vote that is connected to any issue pertaining to the Moody interests?
Short answer, certainly. If there's an issue dealing with any of the Moody entities that come before City Council, Not only will I not vote for it, I'll step out of the room, we'll structure it in such a way where I will be absent during the discussion, where there can be a hearty discussion of the issues without my influence one way or the other. However, there is a good side of being associated with the Moody's. When the people putting the pool together for the community pool a couple of months ago needed that Moody Foundation grant, who did they call to go talk to Mr. Moody? And we have access when it's good. But certainly if the Moody's have any interest to come before City Council, I will abstain from the vote, and I'll even abstain and be absent from the conversation.
Thank you. All right. This one's pretty straightforward. It's from the audience, and they're asking about the first 100 days in office. And what is the one most important thing you will do as mayor if elected? And we'll start with Don Maffridge on that.
The first thing I would do as mayor, I would go on a retreat with city council. This was not done. This is the usual practice of mayor and council, to take a retreat and establish common goals and objectives that everyone on council can support. This ends up being the roadmap for the city and what they wish to accomplish during the time that they're there. Then you have a city manager. Normally, you have a city manager. In our case, this is not normal, but that would be the other thing we would do, would be to hire a city manager that is qualified to carry out the goals and objectives that city council has established for them. And then hold the city manager responsible, not micromanage, but to make sure the city manager does his job. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Yarborough.
Can you repeat the question? I'll make sure I answered it correctly.
I already threw it in the used question bin. I hate it for these people to see me bend down and do something so ordinary in this very stylish suit. However, the question was about your first 100 days in office, and it seems like 100 years ago when I asked it. And what would your top priority be?
Got it. I thought that was a question. So much to do, where do you start? I think the first thing we do is begin to bring focus in on how the most important decision this council will make in the next 2 years is who's going to be the next city manager and what process are we going to go about to select that city manager. So getting some consensus among council on how to go about it and the traits and the manners that we want for our city manager will be number one. Number two, it'll be to develop a relationship with the city council members, whoever we elect, to start building that team. We'll make it clear to ourselves as well as to the staff that we intend to honor the charter. We're not going to park ourselves down in these city offices and think we're Public Works Director and Parks Director and quasi-city manager. And no, I don't want to work that hard. And so we'll build that team in the first 90 days. And as we move into the budget, we will begin to set those goals and objectives, and we will budget around those goals and objectives.
Thank you. Ms. Beaton.
Well, I think what we really need to do when we've elected a new council is bring the council together and form very specific goals. I remember going to the workshop room after council had a workshop many years ago, and they had listed their goals for their term. And they had over 20 goals. And one of those 20 goals was economic development. And I knew that's somebody who isn't going to get anything done. What our council would need to do would be actually develop a 2-year budget, because it's a 2-year term, and make very specific decisions about what we're going to have to show for the term at the conclusion. And we'd need to get all council members together and to figure out what we could agree on, and those would be our goals, and then we would have our city manager focus on those. And of course, we're going to need to begin the search process for a new city manager.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with Mr. Yarborough on this one. how are you guys going to pay for the streets, drainage, and improvements we need? It's that old infrastructure question.
Sure, great question. There's a lot of FEMA money still to be spent. FEMA PW project worksheet money that can be spent on in some of those projects for streets and drainage and other things. There's CDBG monies that are on the table to be spent. Some of those are infrastructure projects like we're talking about. One of the things that we've become accustomed to in Galveston over the years, and certainly in recent years, is that we're broke. And we've always used the excuse we don't have the money because we're broke. Well, 10 years ago that might have been the case. That is not the case today. And they budget for infrastructure. Ms. Beaton mentioned they budgeted $1 million or so this year. And that's why the fund balance keeps growing, folks. It's because they budget these things, but they don't know how to make them happen. And so the money stays there and drops to the fund balance. We've got plenty of reserves, and over the next 2 years, we will develop a long-term plan on how to finance the infrastructure needs of this city. But at least initially, we have enough cash in the bank or federal money to make a great start.
Thank you. Elizabeth Beaton.
Well, number one, close the Palisade Palms Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. The projects there are complete. The taxpayers were promised when they agreed to subsidize development there that the reward for them would be additional property tax on the roll. And there would be over $700,000, almost $800,000 a year available to reinvest in the city of Galveston from that one act alone. The 8% charter amendment is going to be accumulating funds every year for improvements to our streets. And no, it is not correct that the $1 million that the council appropriated this year has not been spent. We have hired an engineer to design the road projects, and those are going to begin construction this summer, including Seeley Street.
Thank you. Mr. Maffrey.
Money is there. I chair the City Finance Committee. There's over $20 million in funds that could be used for streets. It's not the money. The problem is the ability to get things done. It's the organization that exists at City Hall. It's a lack of leadership that we don't have at City Hall. And we are not getting it done. Again, that's the reason why I'm running. We need to know what we can do with our staff and what we can't do. We need to understand that it's necessary to go out and contract out to contractors that can get the work done. But this is a problem that we've had for years, particularly because of lack of leadership. That's my strong suit. I want to get it done. I want to get these streets done. The money's there.
Thank you. All right, now this is one that a number of people in the audience wanted me to ask again of the mayoral candidates. And this one, of course, is what is your position on vacation rentals? Do you feel they should be restricted or even banned in parts of the island? We'll start with you, Elizabeth Beaton.
Council this past term did ask the Planning Commission to form a committee to discuss vacation rentals and make some recommendations. And the Planning Commission declined to form that committee. I think that's needed, first of all. My idea is to regulate vacation rentals much like we do bed and breakfasts. We do require the owners of bed and breakfasts to provide some life safety protection, which we do not currently require of the owners of vacation rentals. And that's in two areas: fire safety and pool safety. And second, we allow bed and breakfasts in our residential neighborhoods, provided there is not more than one per block face or two per intersection. Now that's an idea of mine. I don't know whether that would pass muster or not, but it would be one that I would throw out to the committee if we formed a committee to discuss vacation rentals.
Thank you. Mr. Yarborough.
At this time, based on what I know, I don't think I'd be encouraging additional regulations. You know, we might do our homework and ask some other cities who have short-term